Hey everyone, it's Joel McDonald, and thanks for joining me on this spontaneous lunch and learn. I had a consulting appointment that canceled, and I figured since I had the time blocked out, I'd throw the gauntlet out to my premium subscribers and say, hey, let's talk travel. Ask any question you like, and we can brainstorm about a solution on stretching your travel budget. So I promised that I would get to the questions in the order they were received. But one question in particular, I just have to address first because I kind of have a catch-all answer that I think would be a great way to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of what we talk about. But before we do that, please, anyone watching, please chime in and add a comment. Let me know where you're watching from and maybe how long you've been a JGOOT subscriber and anything else you want to share. So let's just confirm that you're hearing me by adding a comment, and then I will pull up the screen with the question I want to cover first. Let's see, share. Okay, so there is the question that was added. Laura, thank you for asking that question. I think it's a really good one, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of take that opportunity to share my philosophy on, because I think it exactly addresses this. So the JGOOT way of travel, just get out. JGOOT stands for just get out of town, and I firmly believe that the JGOOT way of travel has 3 simple rules, and that's it. And quite frankly, in my opinion, if you apply those 3 rules, those are all the rules you need to save as much as feasibly possible. And with that savings, you can do anything you like. You can take more trips. You can travel better, as in upgrade to business class, or use your savings to at least upgrade to premium economy instead of just the economy seat, or go to nicer hotels, whatever you like. So those 3 rules. Now, this isn't anything against. Before I go into that, this isn't anything against the travel bloggers out there. I'm a subscriber to all sorts of travel blogs, Award Travel 101, The Points Guy. And I participate in a lot of travel communities. But in my opinion and in my travel experience, as a father and a husband and an ex-husband with all of those complexities to juggle, these 3 rules are the only way I've traveled for about 7 years now. And that started when I was on an extremely tight budget going through an awkward divorce. So with that said, the 3 rules that I think should be kept in mind whenever you're traveling, and this is what encompasses the JGOOT way of travel. And actually, before I get to that, let me just make sure people are hearing. All right, Laura, watching from Denver, from Minneapolis. Cool. Well, at least we know my mic is working. So those 3 rules, I truly believe that there is not a travel scenario that can't be solved by following these 3 rules. Rule number 1, look every day. I know that sounds overly simple, but and this goes for whether you're planning a trip a lot. A lot of the vacations we find, and a lot of the vacations that most of our travelers who travel most often have this philosophy. And the whole idea is, like, good deals are easy to find, but the exceptional deals, the ones that are so good that they hardly even affect your travel budget, pop up and they last for a couple days. And if you're not watching for them, whether it's through a subscription of mine or through Airfare Watchdog or Hopper or any of the dozens of apps out there that do this, you're gonna miss it. And by the time you get around to looking, prices, the odds of it being an exceptional deal are really, really low. And if you just have this philosophy, rather than thinking of planning 90 days ahead or 60 days ahead or 120 days ahead, just look and watch. And when you see a good deal to a place you want to go, see if it fits your schedule and book it. And if not, that's okay. You have that philosophy and you're looking every day, and you will find not just good deals, but exceptional deals that will allow you to travel 2 to 5 to 10 times as often for the exact same budget as what you used to spend by just planning 90 days ahead, looking for days on end until you finally resolve to booking a ticket. Rule number 2, be flexible. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but pick any date to any destination, and odds are the day you pick is not going to be the cheapest day. Maybe you leave a day earlier, maybe you leave a day later, maybe you leave at 6 a.m. It could also mean maybe you go somewhere else. So instead of going to, you're planning on going to Cabo, but if you're looking every day and you're looking at all sorts of destinations, you might be able to go on the exact same days you wanted to go, but you go to Aruba or Costa Rica or Bali. There are exceptionally good deals that are often going to be a lot cheaper than whatever destination you're looking at. And sometimes, if you're talking about a vacation, being flexible might mean going somewhere different, and then go to the other place some other time. And then rule number 3, and I'm a firm believer in this, we get 50 inquiries a day from people who we simply can't help. It's people who are, looking. I mean, just 2 days ago, we got an inquiry from someone who has to go to Indonesia, and I just got back from Indonesia. They have to go by the end of the month, and tickets just simply don't exist for less than $1,800 a piece. When my wife and I decided to go to Bali, we weren't finding cheap tickets because we had a very specific time frame that we had to go with, and so we used points, and we went for about $160. Now, it took a lot of points and it took a lot of preparation to get those points, but there are certain times when finding a good deal simply isn't possible. And that's why rule number 3 is kind of the catch-all for the JGOOT way of travel. So enough of me being on a soapbox and talking about that. I added a link to the comments. So I'm going to go through these comments and just kind of address them. I haven't really studied them or looked at them, and I'll share my experience and tell you how I would go about getting the best deal possible. With that said, if anybody wants to jump on and have an actual conversation, there's a link in the comments. And rather than just being a monologue of me answering text questions, maybe we can have a conversation. So feel free to just click on that link and jump on. Otherwise, I'm going to just go through and answer these questions that have been popping up. Thanks, everyone, for your participation. So let's see. George had a question. I actually answered that in text because I thought that would be a quicker answer. Whitney Robinson asks, going to Bali June 22nd. Awesome place. I love it. And trying to decide when you should bite the bullet and get the ticket. So a few questions here. So I'll cover the other ones next. When should you bite the bullet? Average market rate to Bali. First of all, there are no direct flights, so you're going to have to look at various destinations. So don't just be looking for Bali. Look for Singapore. Look for other destinations, Jakarta, in Indonesia, that you could lay over through. You might find a better deal. When the best time? There's no best time. There's never a best time. It used to be that Tuesdays at 1 a.m. were great times, and 90 days were magic numbers. My philosophy and why those 3 rules exist is because there's never a best time. You just have to be watching. So one, good on you because you're planning over 6 months in advance. I would say watch. You are a premium. I'm assuming you are a premium JGOOT Trip Alert subscriber. watch those alerts every day. We publish Bali stuff. We publish Singapore stuff quite regularly. And if you don't want to do anything else, just wait for our trip. Now, June 22nd changes things quite a bit. That's a very specific date. So remember rule number 2, be flexible. Watch for things around June-ish and see if you can make the dates work. And then, of course, start right away on getting your backup stash of points. As a premium subscriber, you've got a link at the bottom of every daily trip alert that invites you to join our point hacking Facebook discussion group. We've got a ton of materials that will show you how to easily get enough points to get you to Bali for under $100. But as far as when's the optimal time, the optimal time is to start looking a year in advance and grab it when flights dip. I personally wouldn't pay cash for a trip to Bali for more than $600. And you can find them, depending on where you are in the country, I don't know that answer, but you can find them for as low as the high 200s from the West Coast, and as low as the high 300s from the East Coast. So it mostly depends on how concerned you are and how patient you are on waiting for that right deal. Long distance, should you go Emirates or any other foreign carrier? Yes. American carriers are completely different than pretty much all foreign carriers. And quite frankly, if it's not too much more expensive, it's a no-brainer. I would always go with a foreign carrier. We just went on Singapore, and we flew out on United business class. We flew back on Singapore business class. And actually, those were comparable, mostly because we researched and got the right planes with the right lie-flat seats. However, if you're going to fly coach, man, foreign carriers are head and shoulders above in terms of seat size, seat pitch, and as in how much they recline, etc. So, but all of that you'll see when you're watching fares every day. You'll see which carriers they are, and the closer you get to June, the less picky you'll want to start being. But if you start watching now, you should definitely find something. And like I said, I wouldn't recommend paying cash for anything over $600, maybe $700, depending on how desperate you get. Let me know if I can answer anything more clearly about that. Let's see. Robert. Ooh, Robert, it looks like you're in the lobby, and we can talk about your question, but it doesn't look like your camera's working, so I can't add you quite yet. Robert asks, hey, there you are. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go live, and we can chat about your question. In front of a bunch of other people. Sound good? All right. So you can confirm that. Do you hear me, Robert?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Nice to meet you. Where are you calling in from?
Now in Phoenix, but I live in Boulder. Yeah.
Oh, you live in
able to hear me?
Boulder. You're a local.
Yeah.
We're two Coloradans talking travel. I like it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's try not to hog too much time. We've got a bunch of other questions, but let's talk about your trip. So you said you're planning a Europe travel in late June or July. Awesome. Planning ahead. Best, most important rule of the JGOOT way of travel. And for everyone else watching, he says, I will travel to and from different cities. So if you have any tips on the best way to search for those, that would be great. So you're a premium subscriber, currently getting Denver area trip alerts, I assume.
Correct. Yeah.
Europe, the biggest thing is how flexible you are and how creative you're willing to be. So, I mean, just a few quick trips or a few quick tips. And I'm going to try, as a challenge, I'm going to see how appropriate these 3 rules of the JGOOT way of travel are. So you're watching trips out of Denver. You're looking well in advance. I would say, tip number one, watch those trips every day. If you fall behind, you can get on the website. We've got a Europe category, and you can just look at those. Even if it's a country you weren't planning on visiting, if you can get yourself to the continent, intercontinent travel is so cheap. You've got trains, you've got planes, you've got everyone competing, and traveling across Europe on a plane is half, if not a quarter, the cost of traveling across the United States. So I'd say watch every day, keep other countries in mind, and then you can grab a commuter flight when you find a stupid cheap fare. And since you've got 7 months to work with, you can be patient and you can wait for a low $300, if not under $300 flight to Europe, and then grab it, work your schedule around it, and go from there.
All right.
To and from different cities. So another creative answer is, and again, this depends on how creative you're willing to be and how patient you can be. So you probably wouldn't need this. But what I always say is people who love travel to Europe also watch for positioning flights. And what that means is watch for cheap flight alerts out of the West Coast. I'm sorry, the East Coast, like DC, New York, Miami, etc. Because those will be cheaper flights. Probably not necessary because, we publish Europe fares in the 300 and 400 range from Denver. We publish Europe fares in the high 2 to mid 300 range in the East Coast. So it's not all that necessary as long as you plan far enough ahead. But if you start to get desperate and hit kind of that 90-day window, you can just reply to any email we send. You can say, hey, can you start watching New York and DC fares for me too? And then same thing, you'll triple your odds of finding something. And if you follow rule number 3 of the JGOOT Way of Travel, get positioning flights are a piece of cake. I mean, if you find a stupid cheap flight out of New York and you have a few points, which my opinion is you should always have a stash of points, you can get yourself there for $20. When Michelle and I went to Asia, we wanted to go for business or first class the whole time. We did that on points, but finding business class seats on points is about 100 times harder than finding coach seats. So what we had to do is positioning flights both ways. So the flight we found was a business class, coolest, like lie flat, $9,000 seat. If we paid cash, we paid like $20, and lots of points. But we had to fly out of DC, so I used some negligible amount of points, and we got ourselves to DC for $11. No, $5, because it was just a one-way flight. So, like I said, that's really only a necessary step if you get desperate. And kind of get inside that 90-day window, which in my opinion is a last-minute flight. But I think if you just kind of be patient, watch for Europe fares. We find multiple Europe fares weekly. And just wait for the one that will come close to a schedule you can make work for you.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions while we've...
No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for being a premium subscriber.
Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. All right. So next question, Gil asks, what's the best, wow, I just kind of covered that. What's the best way to get award seats using miles when the websites limit access to these seats? Unfortunately, it's not necessarily something you can watch like you can watch fares. However, you can, usually my strategy for finding seats is to begin with the end destination in mind. So wherever you're watching, you want to just get a good idea of, okay, well, who's the carrier that travels there most? And literally just go and search for it and become frequent, get a frequent flyer number, become a, so that way you have login credentials, and you can just log into United's or Southwest's or American's site and see what availability they have. Yes, they are limited. Yes, they are only, I don't know, 5 or 10% of seats available, but they're plentiful if you're willing to go coach. You have to get quite a bit more patient and creative if you're going to look business class, but they're also out there. A couple great resources, Award Hacker. Award Hacker is not necessarily for finding seats, but finding the lowest amount of miles to get you to a certain destination. So awardhacker.com. Can people type that in for me into the comments section so it's just there for people to click? Awardhacker.com. That's a great resource for finding the flights that are going to cost you the least amount of points. It's not rock solid, but it's a great guideline. If they say you can get to Asia for 35,000 points, and you can do it through an Amex card or a Chase card or or United or whatever, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed 35,000 points, but it's a great starting point to say, all right, my next card is going to be an Amex card, because there are plenty of opportunities to get to Asia for 35 or 40,000 points. Another resource is Expert Flyer. So if you have very specific dates and you look and you don't see points available, you can become a subscriber with expertflyer.com, and they will watch for you, and they will watch for availability of seats available on points. So hopefully that answers your question, Gil. Feel free to reply to your comment if I need to clarify on anything. Wow, 11 more comments. I've got about 25 more minutes, so I'll get to as many of them as I can. George, love it. George followed up. He does check religiously as soon as he gets up. I will say, our most frequent travelers know exactly when they get their premium trip alerts every morning. They know the exact minute that they come. They check their email every day, and they've taken 10, 20, 50 JGOOT trips just by opening that email every day. And when they see a trip they like, they see if it fits their schedule and they book it. Another question, perhaps too general, but maybe you can shed some light. The basic hotels that can be had in combination with the flights are very pocketbook friendly. Any comment generally as how these basic hotels have proven out? Very good question. Always important to research the hotels you go at. So two things. One is we always publish just the flight alone, so you can just grab the cheap flight and get yourself there and then figure out lodging later. You can also bundle your flight with the hotel. And when we give you a flight plus hotel price, first of all, know that you don't have to book them together. You can just book the flight. You can change the number of travelers. You can upgrade your hotel. You can do anything you like. But regarding your question, a best practice is to start with the reviews right there on the kayak site that we send you. But if you start to narrow down and look at various hotels, whether it's a budget hotel or a 4-star hotel, allegedly 4-star hotel, according to whatever travel site you're looking at it on, my experience is TripAdvisor always has 3 to 10 times as many reviews. So you get a lot better picture of the quality of the place that you're going to go. And I would say research that before you book your flight and hotel bundle. With that said, no better time to book your hotel than by bundling it with a flight. So the whole idea, find that cheap flight, look at our flight plus hotel prices, scroll down until you see a hotel you like. Like I said, all of our prices are based on the cheapest hotel we found, which can sometimes include a hostel. But you can just scroll down until you find a hotel that you do like and that you're comfortable with in terms of quality. Look at that price, and if that still looks good, keep researching. Then go to TripAdvisor. Make sure the quality of the hotel is good based on the 10 times as many reviewers. And then book it. Sometimes that's the best you can do. Hopefully that answered your question. Reply back if not. Ty Mao. Planning a trip to Tokyo in June, first time, and you want my recommendation for a nice location. Family of 5. Also, we'll be traveling to London and Paris in March. Any recommendations there? I haven't been to Japan, so I couldn't say. You may want to ask that in our JGOOT Village and also our point hacking group. We get more participation in point hacking, but we've got a lot of seasoned travelers who I'm sure would chime in about what to do there. In terms of traveling with family of 5, remember that all of our trip alerts are fully customizable up to 6 passengers. You can just, everything we quote in terms of flight plus hotel assumes 2 travelers, but you can change that to 1 traveler, to 5 travelers, whatever you like. In terms of traveling to London, Paris, I'm all about just getting to wherever you want to go as affordably as possible so that you can spend your airline savings on stuff like excursions or cooler hotels or more trips or business class upgrades or whatever. So my advice, I tend to stay away from where to go, what to see, because there are so many amazing places to go and things to do. And I'm just all about going where you can stretch your travel budget as far as possible. So going to London or Paris, I'd say the same advice I said earlier. Get yourself to the continent. And if you're looking well in advance, which now that we're in March, that's not terribly far in advance. So I'd say keep an eye out for London and Paris trips. We do publish them all the time, but if you start to get desperate, like if another month goes by and you haven't booked something and you don't have points, which you should, start looking for neighboring areas. Spain, Switzerland, Norway. Norway is a $30 to $60 flight from London or Paris. And Norway is almost always the cheapest flights out there in all of Europe. So get yourself there, do a quick layover, and hop over. So hopefully that answered that question. Thank you for asking it. Oh no, Barbie, you don't hear me. I'm sorry. Let me see if anybody else is having that problem. Don't know what to say. We've got it. I haven't heard from anybody else. Hopefully the replay will work better. Jackie, I'm looking to travel with my family to Vienna in the summer, anytime June through August. Yeah, we have so many people planning ahead. I love it. Or any airport near there. Jackie, you are like the student sitting in the front class taking copious notes. I love it. What's the best way to watch for that? Summer Search has last year's trips watching from Minneapolis. So I will confess, this is still in growth phase. We're working on an improvement that will stay a lot more on top of past trips. Summer, we definitely are finding summer trips, but they're still not plentiful. That will start to happen as we hit January. Same thing, just keep watching every day. Even if you find something that's close enough. So you're looking at June through August, which is awesome. You've got a 3-month window that you can book a trip. Even if you see something in May or in September, you can almost always play with the dates that we find. So everything we find, we send you to a specific date range that we found, but you can almost always change the dates and find some alternate dates that will work for you. So the summer category is pretty much limited to June through August, but if you're checking those daily email alerts, just watch for anything on the Europe continent in May or in September, and you can probably play with those dates and find something. And put rule number 3 into place. If things get desperate and you don't find something, you can always get there for points. And points are about 100 times easier to earn than dollars. I'm a firm believer in that. The earlier you look, the less likely you'll ever need points. But if you just go and get yourself a couple 100,000 points, which are a piece of cake to earn, if you get close to that summer time frame, you can always dig into your stash of points. Josh, cold as heck there in Minneapolis. We're having a cold stint here in Colorado too, so I can relate. Just had to go add another heater to our fish pond out back. Laura watching from Denver, watching from Seattle. Hi, Barbie. Ty from LA. Grew up in LA, outside of LA, and in Torrance. Tina, planning a trip to Hawaii in June for 2020 for 11 people. What's a good deal or great deal for airfare? I can expect from SLC. For 11 people, much better deals from LAX, yes. Any suggestions? I think the most important thing is how quickly can your group of 11 people, I'm assuming that's 2 or 3 families, how quickly can you jump on a deal? My advice, or if I were traveling with another family, I would kind of set some constraints and say, okay, we want to get ourselves to Hawaii. We want to get ourselves there affordably. Let's just set the points thing aside, because some people aren't interested in that. Honestly, points would be a great way, and then you can pick. You can be a lot more. You have a lot more choices in terms of dates. But if you're going to do this the traditional way by looking for the fare and paying cash from Salt Lake, I would recommend positioning. So watch for fares from Salt Lake. Just reply to an email and ask Brooke to add you to an LA and a San Francisco search. Both of those would be an easy drive or flight. And then just watch and wait. If you're planning June, you've got 6 months to work with. I'd do that right away and just start watching. With that said, one other tip and this goes for anyone else I've talked about watching and waiting. We only publish what we feel are exceptional deals. So we're not going to waste your time with like an $800 or $900 flight to Hawaii. We're only going to publish stuff that's under $500, maybe $600, $700 if it comes with good lodging. You might be willing to pay higher than prices we publish. So if that's the case for you, and it's very important, and you have very specific timelines, I would recommend setting up an additional fare watch in addition to our stuff. And because again, you might be willing to pay $900 a person or $1,000 a person to go to Hawaii, and if we're only publishing $500 and $600, you might not find dates that work well for you. So if that's the case for you for anywhere you want to go, I mean, you can always just look at the average fares we've published in the past. You can get an idea of what we publish, and we don't typically publish much higher than that. If you'd be willing to spend more than that, it's very important for you to get to a specific place. I would recommend going to 2 different sites, either Airfare Watchdog, and just sign up for a fare watch for that destination from your home airport. They'll alert you of $1,000 flights that we would never alert you of. And it's all relative depending on the destination. If you have very specific time constraints, Airfare Watchdog will rarely work for you. Just like our fare alerts will rarely work for you if you have very specific time constraints. So the other option would be to just set up a fare watch for specific time frames on Kayak or on Google Flights or something like that, or both. All of that said, another guaranteed way is to just get points. My philosophy is points. People say, oh, I don't want to sign up for a credit card. I don't want to switch my checking account, so I have to pay all that stuff. I'm telling you, The amount of time it takes to get 50 to 100,000 points is like 1/20th as much time as it takes to beat your head against a wall, looking at all the search sites, looking at all the airlines, trying to find cheaper flights when cheaper flights don't exist. The biggest problem is that it does take advanced planning. You have to go get those points in advance. You can't, decide 30 days from a trip that you can't find something affordable and go get points. So, like, that's why rule number 3 isn't go and get points to travel more affordably. It's go and get points long before you think you need them. My wife and I flew to Hawaii for $22, and we paid. The person next to us paid $1,300. I couldn't find flights for cheaper than $1,300 either. So points to the rescue. We got to go to Hawaii, and I wasn't grumpy about the bill I had to pay. So thanks for that question, Tina. Hopefully that helped. Melissa, why doesn't everybody just kind of chime in? How is this working? Is this too advanced? Should I get more granular? Is this too basic? Should I cover more ground and talk faster? Can everyone just chime in on what they think? And I will move on to the next question and then see what everyone has to say. And I have about 12 more minutes. So, Melissa, upcoming travel to Trinidad and Tobago from Washington during peak season. Purchased reasonably priced one-way on February 23rd. Okay, I assume that means you kind of pounced on a good deal. Good for you. Having trouble finding a reasonably priced return flight that is not circuitous. Willing to fly into Miami or elsewhere. From Washington. Okay, so yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about Washington, D.C. But couple ideas. February 23rd is we're kind of in that 90-day window. So I would start to get more creative and more aggressive with what you're doing. I would watch for positioning flights, anything, kind of anything in the southeast section. So that could include Miami, Houston, North Carolina is probably too small, probably New York, and just watch for alerts there. You can always have us add additional home airports for you, and then it just means opening 2 different emails every morning. They're always kind of fun to open, aren't they? I would also get right on points. You are kind of painted into a corner. You probably have a very specific window of time that you have to return in, so that drastically reduces your odds of getting a good deal. Not to say it won't happen, but that you can also just get some points and use points. We did that once. Some friends, JGOOT subscribers out of Indianapolis, found an alert for $300. They texted all of us, our whole group of friends, and says, we just bought $300 flights to Turks and Caicos. Who else wants to go? We wanted to go. Flights during that specific time out of Denver were $650, $700. Wasn't in the budget, was a short trip, just wasn't going to happen at that rate. So, but we dipped into our stash of points. It wasn't a lot of points to get there, and we paid $96. So again, I'm doing my best to kind of demonstrate that these 3 rules can solve just about any travel problem you have. The key to them is to implement them sooner than you think you need them. Thanks for asking that question, Melissa. Chime in if I didn't cover it thoroughly enough. Mark watching with good reception. We talked just the other day. Thanks for tuning in. Barbie, what's the best way to keep a stash of points on hand? What source do I use? I have an Alaska Airlines Visa. Best way to keep stash of points is to, and my general rule for my own personal family travels is that you should never have less than 50,000 points per person in your family for emergency use. And if you might have emergencies out of state, an emergency can be, you know, a wedding, a funeral, or a guy's trip or girl's trip, kind of like our Turks and Caicos example. So what's the best way? I'm a bit different than most. I don't believe in, like people say, what's the best card? Well, that depends on your personal needs. What's your home airport? What's the most popular airline out of that home airport? And most importantly, where do you like to go, or where do you tend to go most often that doesn't have affordable trips? So, you know, if you visit friends and family in Phoenix and Salt Lake, and Southwest flies from your place to there, a Southwest card makes a lot of sense. Go and get a Southwest card. When you run out of points, get another Southwest card. When you run out of points, get a Chase, any Chase card that is a part of the ultimate rewards program, because their points can transfer to Southwest. If you like Europe, go to Award Hacker, pick your favorite destinations, enter your home airport and the destinations you like to go to. They will tell you which cards will get you there for the fewest points. Those are the points you should go and get. And my general rule of thumb is anytime you start to dip below that critical amount of points you have, like if you have a family of 4, anytime you dip below 200,000 points, just go sign up for a new card and strategically pick that card based on Award Hacker advice and build up your stash of points. It takes about 30 minutes, takes another 30 minutes to add your checking account. And that hour invested is always going to be far less expensive than when you need to get to Phoenix for a family emergency and flights are $750. And you have a family of 5. We've done that. We've flown places. Flights were $400, $500, $600. We went for 11, but only because we built up a stash of points. Hopefully that answered your question, Barbie. Thanks for asking. I really want to exclude Spirit from my newsletter, deals, or searches. How can you do this? Unfortunately, we are all about affordable travel, and we publish the cheapest fares. Now, one thing, just because a trip is on a carrier that you dislike, and I know we all have them, let's not go and bash them, because I know some people that hate certain airlines and other people absolutely love them. However, even if you hate Spirit Airlines, if they have a $49 fare to Vegas, fare wars still happen. So just because the cheapest flight is on Spirit, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you can scroll down and you can see that, oh, guess what? United fare matched, and it's, or not fare matched, but they're competing, and they're only $59 or $69. So don't necessarily write things off just because they're with a carrier you might not like. Because quite often you can just scroll down a little further and see if there's a carrier you do like that has a similar fare. It happens quite often. Got a blog post or 2 out there with proof of that. So another thing that I will say, and I was just talking, I went to lunch with my assistant, Brooke, who is our assistant is not a good enough title. She's amazing. She knows travel inside and out. She's learned the JGOOT way of travel inside and out. She loves Spirit Airlines because you can upgrade to their premium seats, which are basically business class / first class seats, for $80. That's the cost of 2 checked bags. So even if you hate Spirit, you can often look at it and see if you can upgrade for the cost of 2 checked bags. And my guess is you might like Spirit a lot more if you got in those premium cushy seats for no more than the cheap fare that you got the flight in a premium economy seat. Okay. Asha, dying to get to Thailand. We publish Thailand stuff all the time. The only other thing I would say is if you're willing to be creative, watch some of those positioning flight areas. Watch us, watch anything off the West Coast. Those will be your cheapest flights. And then maybe if that is an exceptional enough deal, you can get yourself to that airport and get you there, increase your odds of getting there super cheap. But as long as you're patient enough and flexible enough, rules number 1 and 2, you can totally get there for under $500, even from the east side of the country. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Several people included the link. Award hacker to gauge travel to Asia. Cool. Thanks. I'll keep watching. Okay, well, I think that's all of our questions. We managed to cover it in the little bit of amount of time I have. Okay, one last question. Do rewards program miles go up and down with cost of flights? Totally depends on the carrier. So, for example, when we went to Asia, one of our 3 flights, we took 2 business class, like across the oceans, and we also took a suite just so we could do it. The suite price was a fixed price. It was 53,000 miles, which is a stupid low amount of points. It was just that was the cost of that flight for that duration. It was a 7-hour flight, and their rule is it's 53,000 miles for flights under 8 hours. Most people like to do the super long haul, like 10 to 12-hour flights, and those are way more expensive. But our flight on that leg alone on the suite was a $12,000 flight, and it was 53,000 points. So that's not in alignment at all with prices. Southwest, it tends to fluctuate, but points are almost always a way better deal than cash. Other airlines kind of fluctuate with price. I've taken United flights where the flight was $600. The points were like 50,000, which is ridiculous. I wouldn't do either. I'm going to a different carrier if that's the case. So to answer your question, every carrier is different. The way you find the best opportunities is to find scenarios where there is a big discrepancy. For example, there weren't any flights on local carriers to Hawaii when we went for less than 50,000 points. However, by knowing that Korean Air was a travel partner with Delta, we were able to book a Delta flight on Korean Air because they just say anything in the United States, like from somewhere in the United States to somewhere else in the United States, 25,000 points. It doesn't matter if it's from Denver to Phoenix or from Washington, D.C. to Hawaii. So those are like little arbitrage opportunities that are really fun to exploit with points. So that was probably a longer answer than you were hoping for, but I can get long-winded when it comes to talking about travel. So I think that covers all of our questions. Not bad for 51 minutes of discussion. Thanks everyone for joining. If you liked this, chime in. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what you didn't like. Maybe I'll do this more often. I'm passionate about travel. It kills me when I hear people say they can't take trips because they couldn't find cheap enough flights, because you should always be able to find a cheap enough flight if you just follow those 3 rules. Thanks again for joining. Happy travels.